Welcome back, and in this video we're going to look at functions and procedures. Now, a little bit of a preamble there for you. I am trying to improve the quality of these videos. I know I don't put my face on it or anything like that, purely through easiness, and I teach a lot of students, don't particularly want my face posted on every video. I'm sure I'll do something silly and sneeze or something daft, and I don't particularly want my face being photoshopped, to be honest with you. I've tried to improve the quality, so I'm using a different microphone today. It seems better, it seems quite a lot louder, and I've improved the settings, so hopefully the text is a little bit clearer. My laptop's a little bit loud, so hopefully that won't be too impactful on the video, it won't make it too inaudible. So a function is a set of instructions that can be called multiple times and returns a value. Procedure is exactly the same. Yep, I am copying and pasting, but it does not return a value. Now, where you're going to use these is if you're going to do something multiple times. Now, I don't mean like 10 cricket scores, so you'd for loop 10 times. That doesn't necessarily make sense. So I'm functioning. If you're only going to do it 6 times, you're done. Just for loop it, absolutely fine. But it's where you're going to start doing something multiple times throughout varying different parts of your program as well. So a real simple thing, so I'm adding up, so I can do let number 1 equals 10, let number, let's keep it consistent, equals 20, and I could do let answer equals number 1 plus number 2. Like that, console.log answer. Now I run that, it should say 30. And it does, so it's worked. But what if I'm doing more than just adding up? What if I'm doing some adding up, some conversions, currency conversions, maybe checking something with a database, and then giving you the answer? Then I'm going to want a result. So if I'm going to do that, I need to create a function. So let's do function add and 2 curly brackets. Now, with a function, you don't have to, but if you want to pass in some variables, so give it some information to start off with, these are called parameters. So I'll type that there for you. Parameters, like that. So my 2 parameters might be n1 for number 1 and n2 for number 2. Let's say let result equals n1 plus n2 and return result. So we can give it back to them. And then here I can just do add, put the brackets in, and then pop the comma in to say I've got 2 parameters. If I run that, it'll say 30 twice, because it's the same job. So we've got the answer there. It won't say it twice, I think console log it actually, but it's got exactly the same result. If I put a console.log in here, it would have given that answer then as well. Now, as I say, that's really, really useful. However, let's say I want to get result and I do console.log result like that. If I run that, so I'm looking at this variable here, if I run that, it's going to say 30, and then it's going to say result is not defined. Now that's because this variable, result, this integer, has only been created, I've used a let keyword inside these 2 curly brackets, which means it's in that variable's, that function's scope. Now scope isn't a thing specific to variables, to functions or classes. It's loads of different things have scope with these curly brackets, but because I've made it here, it only exists here. Now what's useful about that is instead of having all of the variables in your entire program at the top as a global variable where anyone can use it, you can start essentially making compartments in your program. So you're not having a million variables that you're keeping track of. Like I made a game yesterday, a real tough simple game, took about 40 minutes, but the amount of variables I had was unreal. So I need to go back, refactor, which means you go back, change, put into functions and neaten up to make it a little bit more readable. But if you've got really nice named functions, so add, I could even change that to add integer to make it a bit more specific. But those are all examples of where you might do that. And it makes it nice and neat and readable. Now, we've looked at scope, we've looked at parameters, and we've looked at a function. Now, if I take out this return and run, probably get rid of that as well, it says undefined. And that's because I've not said do anything with it. So I've said answer is going to be the result of this. But because I haven't used the word return, there is no result. Here, it'll still work because it still does the maths, doesn't do nothing. but I've not put it back into a variable. So it's said 30 there and undefined. So that return is really important, and that makes it a function. Now what you might notice as well is that my parameters have different names to these. Now that doesn't have to be the case. They can be the same name. The reason that I do it differently and do two different names is because when you write this in an exam question, they'll say, write a function, and if your parameters are the same variable name as your global variables or your input variables, sometimes the examiner can get confused. Sometimes there's a mark for having different names, especially when we look at classes later on. So that's just one thing that isn't a programming tip, it's more of an exam tip. So that is your function that returns a value, and that's worked. Really good example to here is doing lots and lots of functions in like a calculator program. That'd be really useful for skills development. There are some functions that are built in. So in a previous lesson, you saw that I did number like this. Now that's a function because it takes a string. So for example, number 2. Now I'm just going to move that because you shouldn't have something after the return. As soon as it gets to the return, it finishes the function. Like that, if I console.log, won't do much, doesn't do anything at all in fact. It just converts 2 from a string to a number, but that's a function because it's put something in this variable afterwards. So that's our function. Procedure, I might do something like this. So function, add procedure. I'm going to have any parameters. Let's say I've got num1, let num2, let a. Let's just check that. I thought I might call them the same name. That's good. What I might do as well is just do a equals num1 plus num2. Console.log. Also, your functions don't have to be in the block. You can have all your functions at the end as well. You don't need to do that. It's just I'm writing them as I get along. So here doesn't do much. Let's put a value in. Equals 5 equals 6. Run that. And let's just check. So we've got 5 plus 6 saying 2, which is irrelevant. Let's delete some of our old code. Let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. Okay, so it's saying undefined there because there's nothing in it. Let a equals 0. Now it's saying 0 there. Do you want to think of a reason why it might be the case? Any ideas? I didn't call the function, so I just need to do add proc. So when you make these functions, quite a lot of students, what they do is they write the function, it's all perfect code, but then they don't actually call the function. When you use the function, it's called calling it. You don't use it, it's not going to do anything. That's why it just says 0. Now it's added them up, it said 11. But instead of doing its own variables, its own scope, all my variables are up here. So you can change global variables. When we look at classes later on, we have things called getters and setters. Now a setter is where you change a value. So it might be a case of you change the size. So you set the size to 10. So you might just have something like size equals 10 or size equals size plus 1. That's really useful. We don't need a confirmation. We don't need a return for that. However, if it was doing a getter, function and get size, probably don't need a parameter. But we're going to return size, let's say. Now the size doesn't exist in this case. I'll have to do something like let size equals 1. Console log size like that. So we've got 1. We add 1 to it. So then it's that size there has become 2. It's added 1 to it. And then what I might do is say let z equals get size, and then console log z, and it'll give us 2 again. Would be an idea if I actually put brackets there. So if it goes yellow in the replit, it means it's a function and it's wet, and it says 2, so that's wet. So procedures when you don't need to put it into a variable afterwards. But you need to make sure as well that you write the word procedure in an examination question. A function has to have that return keyword. Okay. So that should have been. Oh no, that should say something like set size as well. If you're going to be posh. But yeah, so that's it. So functions, can use it multiple times and return a value. So I could do add proc and do add function. So I could do that as many times as I want. So I could do set size. So size would be 3, like that. But I can do this as many times as I want, but it has to return a value of its function. A procedure does not. Hopefully that's nice and clear. What I recommend you do is make yourself a nice little calculator program for now, and then start thinking about where you've done things multiple times. You know, checking if the password's right, checking if something's validated correctly, checking that there's no numbers in a string or whatever. That's something that's really useful. But anyway, hopefully that was helpful. Please keep giving me feedback. I do want to make these videos better. I would like to get past 1,000 subscribers. I'd love to get to 1 million, but that's pretty unlikely. So all your support and help is really, really useful. And I will see you anyway in the next video.